Welcome to Meet Me at the Grizz, the podcast that shares authentic voices and real stories from Rotary Scout Reservation, where scouts grow, lead, and make memories that last a lifetime. I'm your host, Ken Clough. Have you ever thought about being on staff at Rotary Scout Reservation? Or maybe you're a parent wondering how a summer on camp staff can help your scout build confidence, leadership, and responsibility. In today's episode, we will hear from Ed Keilen, a longtime scouter whose journey from camper to assistant ranger shows just how powerful the staff experience can be. Together, we will explore how working at Rotary shaped his career path, the leadership skills and life skills he developed, the fellowship that defines camp life, and his advice for anyone thinking about joining the staff. Let's get started. From camper to camp ranger. Every great scouting story begins with a first summer at camp. For Ed, that first experience at Rotary sparked a lifelong connection, one that took him from camper to staff member and eventually to assistant ranger. Ed, welcome to the podcast. I'm so excited to have you here as a guest on Meet Me at the Grizz.
Yeah, happy to do it, Ken.
People probably know you most recently as the assistant ranger at Rotary Scout Reservation. But you've told me the other day that you have been at Rotary Scout Reservation every summer since 1974. Is that true?
Right. So 74 is my first year as a scout. My first year on staff was in 1980.
Mm-hmm.
I've been the nature director. I've been the high adventure director, the program director, the camp director, and the assistant ranger.
Wow. That's 51 years for those of you that are counting along at home with us. But that's a long time to spend at camp. How did you start out at Rotary? You said you were a scout. Did you do summer camp there?
Yeah, I went to summer camp there. We did weekend camping there. My first camp out as a scout in 1974 was a freeze out in January in what would now be the Shindaku latrines. Yeah, the Shindaku site in the lean-tos. I was Oneida at the time.
Mm-hmm.
And then summer camp every year up until right through 1979. Right through 1980.
What prompted you from going from a scout to being on staff?
It was an odd story. Soccer was a very important part of my life from the time I was in elementary school. So, as usual, I was late getting to camp on Sunday in 1980. I came in around dinner time after a game, and I sat down at the table. We used to have family-style seating then, so there was a staff member seated at the table, and it happened to be Tim Fortin, who was the assistant nature director. He asked me what I wanted to do this week, and I was like, "Oh, I want to do botany merit badge." No one ever does botany merit badge. So he's like, all right, you're going to have to talk to the director. So I met John Strang, the director, and John and I would go out every day and do plant identification. And one day during a thunderstorm, we just kind of got off topic. And he asked me, he's like, I think I showed him my driver's license for some reason we were talking about. And he's like, how old are you? I was like, 17. It's like, why aren't you working here? I was like, I don't know. So he talked to Don Fremont, who was the camp director at the time, and Don brought me back at the end of camp, and that's how it started.
Now, what was the first area that you worked in?
I worked actually the next year. Tim, the staff member I had talked to at the table, was the nature director. So I worked for Tim as his assistant, but it was a jamboree year, so he left for the jamboree for however long that is, a couple of weeks, I guess. And I was the nature director while he was out.
That's kind of like a trial by fire thing, huh?
Yeah.
I imagine you did well.
I hope so. I mean, who knows? They hired me back in 82 as the director, so I guess I did okay.
After you were director at nature, did you go into some other areas in the camp? Or?
Yeah, I stayed in nature right through 85. In 86, they made me the high adventure director. I actually took treks out of camp. We did a canoe trip on the Hoosic River. We did, it was only like a day trip. We did horseback riding. I went to a local area in Post and Kill. I was the wilderness survival instructor for some reason. So I did that in 86. And then I think that would get me into a different program area, I think. So they were kind of preparing me to be the program director in 87.
And how was that experience as program director? That must have been unique and challenging, or
Program director is an interesting job. Yeah, I mean, the most nervous thing for me was, I was going to have I had done it as the nature director, but now you're in front of people, the whole scout camp all the time. Whereas, as the nature director, I might have to get up and lead a song or something and talk to them occasionally. But program director, you're kind of there constantly as the face. But I didn't mind being program director. I enjoyed it.
wow, wow. And then what did you do after you were program director?
I was scheduled to come back as program director again in 1989, but the council executive decided. So he asked me if I'd be the camp director right before camp started. So I went to camp school in 89, and I wound up being the camp director in 89 and 90, which were the last 2 years of the Governor Clinton Council.
Ed's progression through those positions shows what's possible when you keep showing up, work hard, and love what you do. Each step gave him a new way to serve and to grow. How camp shaped a career path. The lessons learned at Rotary don't stay at camp. They follow you in the real world. Let's take a listen. You said you were teaching at the time, and I know when we've talked before, you said that camp was instrumental in helping you kind of choose your career path. Can you talk a little bit about, kind of what happened there?
Yeah, like I had mentioned earlier, soccer was an important part of my life, and I played all the time from the time I was in elementary school. And my coach at the time had a big impact on my life, so I thought I might want to be a phys ed teacher. That's how I started. By the time I got to high school, my guidance counselor had convinced me that there were no teaching jobs at the time, which would have been in the 70s, which they were right. They were laying people off right and left. So I switched to another interest, which was architecture. So I went into architecture and spent 2 years at RPI. I decided that isn't where I wanted to go. And I kind of started leaning back after my camp experiences, teaching at camp toward teaching again, and wound up going to Cortland State and getting my undergraduate at Cortland State.
What did you end up teaching?
I was certified as a NK 1 through 6, 7 through 9 science extension teacher. So I was certified from nursery through ninth grade in science. I wound up teaching science and social studies, fifth grade, so a middle school grade, but at an elementary building in the North Colony District.
It sounds like you had a direct connection between, what you did at camp and what eventually became your career. It helped you kind of rely on those experiences that you had at camp.
Yeah, the nature director job is what switched me. Like I said before, I'd been interested in being a phys ed teacher. It was being the nature director was what made me decide to go into science. And the other choice I was considering was forestry, because that was what I really enjoyed teaching at camp, was forestry. So it was between teaching and forestry. I decided to go down the teaching route.
The teamwork, the leadership, and the communication skills developed on staff helped guide Ed's professional journey. Rotary wasn't just a summer job. It was a launching pad. Leadership and career skills for life. Being on staff means stepping up every day, leading activities, helping campers, and handling the unexpected. Those challenges become lessons that last far beyond camp. Let's hear what Ed has to say. Now, one of the other things that we've chatted about was that there at camp, there are leadership skills that you really can't find anywhere else. And, given the fact that you've had so many positions at camp, and the fact that you were a scout there, worked on staff, program director, camp director, could you talk a little bit about what leadership skills that you learned and what you see other people learn that help prepare them for life?
The skills that you get as a camp staff member are very unique. I mean, as an 18-year-old, you were in charge of other staff members. I was creating lesson plans. Like I mentioned, there's public speaking involved to it. And by 21, I was the program director, so significant public speaking, conflict resolution, dealing with adults and scouts, dealing with problems between the staff. There's a lot that goes on in a camp staff job that you just don't get if you have a part-time job, working at McDonald's or as a lifeguard at a lake where you're just pretty much sitting in a tower watching people all day long. Even if you're working on our waterfront, you're instructing, you're interacting with adults, you're doing much, much more. There's a lot involved in a camp staff job. And the training, we spend a week of training on various topics. Yeah, you get a lot out of it, way more than you would get out of most part-time or even sort of summer jobs or whatever you want to call them, short of doing like an internship in your field or something.
It must have been a benefit when you were applying for jobs to indicate that, you had all this kind of experience.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, especially in teaching. I mean, I had been teaching by the time I taught in 87. I had been teaching every summer since 1980. And, I had been a director, so I had been writing lesson plans and creating those for years. So that whole concept, I was used to being in front of a group and working with them. So, when I came to do student teaching, I was very comfortable being in front of a group of students.
You've also seen, probably through your years in camp, a lot of other staff members come through. Have you experienced the same thing as you see them come to camp on staff, and as they grow, do they, are there lessons that you can tell that they've learned or that they've told you?
Oh, we've had, the changes we've seen in people on staff. We've gone from scouts who, were homesick as their first year on staff, being some of the most outgoing, innovative, best teachers we have on staff. Our program director, a couple of years ago, Jack Schneider, works for the Justice Department. He's becoming a lawyer, but he's the one who actually brought up the fact about all these skills that he was getting working at summer camp. So it's not only such a great job as far as fun and getting to know people. It has a lot of life skills in it, regardless of what field you're going into.
Oh, that's great to hear. I know I hear the same thing from some of the staff members that I chat with, is that it's a great learning opportunity. And I know my son, my oldest son, Andrew, who was on camp staff, could see him. He learned a lot and learned a lot of skills. And I know that when he went to apply for jobs, that was, a great experience that he was able to list on his applications and on his resume, that, he was helping, younger scouts learn new things, public speaking, all of the great things that you've talked about.
Yeah, I mean, my resume literally, would say director of ecology and conservation, program director, camp director, all those things were on it. I mean, that's pretty good stuff for someone who's just turned 20.
And I know, one of the things you alluded to, sometimes there's, things that need resolution, maybe conflict resolution. I think people forget that leadership is a lot of learning how to do things. And I think for the staff that I've seen over my years at camp, they're young people that are developing and they're learning at the same time that they're doing. And I think that's also a testament to program director and the camp director and all the other senior staff there, that they're there to help the scouts through that time.
It's good training for the scouting program itself too. I mean, a lot of scout leaders are often reluctant to send people to staff because they don't want to lose their junior leaders during summer camp. But it's a training course for them. I mean, the staff gets to interact and see the scouts from the other side and the leaders from the other side. So they come back to their troops as much better leaders than when they left.
Ed's experiences remind us that working at Rotary teaches real world skills: planning, teamwork, accountability, all the skills that prepare young people for any path they choose. The RSR community and fellowship. Ask anyone who's been to Rotary and they'll tell you it's the people who make it special. Ed thinks so too. One of the things I've been kind of reflecting on in the first two episodes of our podcast is the fact that, Rotary is a community and people come together from all different places and they learn to work together. I was wondering if you could tell me a little bit about what you feel is the sense of community from your perspective at Rotary Scout Reservation.
I'm not even sure where to begin. I mean, Rotary has become my second family. So, which is a very large family compared to my regular family. I've been fortunate enough to have my wife Janet go through this with me. So we both spend an inordinate amount of time there, although we have very different roles at the camp. And most of our friends, I certainly had friends at work when I was teaching, and same with Janet. But most of the people we spend time with outside of camp are people we know from camp. And it's an intense experience. I mean, when you work with them during the summer, I mean, you are living with them. You're eating 3 meals a day. You're with them all the time. You're through the good things, through the bad things for 7 weeks. And it's very intense. I mean, I've seen Janet works with the training committee, and they'll come up, things, programs like Wood Badge or NYLT. They spend a week, and they're exhausted, and I understand why. But doing 7,
Mm-hmm.
it's an incredible experience, unlike anything else. And the bonds you form with these people last forever. I mean, I have friends now, who are 18, 19, 20, and I have friends who are, 80. And it was like that when I was a youth. It just crosses the age gap. You get some great experiences, and you get all kinds of connections with people. It's so hard to even explain. I say it's unlike anything else. Maybe a college experience, living in a dorm with people, but I think even goes beyond that in many ways.
Yeah, I would agree with you. I think it's, I do have, friends, scouts and staff that I've met and keep in touch with, and some older scouts that I've met, scouters, who, provide different perspectives. And it's kind of like a great place where you can have the meeting of the old and the new, and everyone just kind of gets together around a common purpose.
Yeah, I mean, there aren't many places that do that in your life. It's different. I mean, as a teacher, most of my friends were, relatively close to me in age. I mean, we were all,
Hmm.
but and we don't spend nearly as much time together. I often say is, the reason I go back to camp all the time. Yeah, I have some very special places in camp that mean things to me, and I enjoy going out and doing things even on my own. But it's mostly the people is the reason I go back year after year.
That sense of belonging, the laughter around campfires, and the friendships that endure for decades, they're what turn Rotary from a place into a family. Advice for future staff members. If you're thinking about joining the Rotary staff, Ed has some great advice to help get you started. If you could pass on some advice to a young person thinking about joining staff at Rotary, someone who's, might be thinking of working as a CIT, a counselor in training, or as a junior staff member, or as a senior staff member, what kind of advice would you give a potential staff member? What would you tell them?
The CIT program is a great opportunity to kind of be a camper and a staff member at the same time. It's a great value, and you get a good taste for it. And from what I can tell from the CITs I've worked with, they seem to get a really good experience out of it. You really get a taste for what it's going to be like. Obviously, to step up to be a paid staff member, but like I said, there are so many skills you'll get doing this. You will make friendships that will last for the rest of your life. I still see people I worked with in my first years there, and some of them are still there. I wasn't the only one, and it's just an experience like nothing else you can ever get. I think if I think it's something worth doing, even if you can't do it long term. We still have staff members year after year who come back. They have full time jobs. They can't work for this during the summer, but they come back summer after summer after summer, spend days with us, evenings with us, weekends with us, come up during staff week. Dozens of these people who come back over and over and over again. It's not just a coincidence.
Ed's message is simple: take the leap. The lessons you learn and the people you'll meet will change your life in ways you can't imagine. Independence and responsibility. Before we wrap up, Ed shares one final reflection about the independence and responsibility that come from being on staff. If there was one last thing, you wanted to tell everybody about Rotary, is something we haven't talked about, what would you want to tell them?
Wow, Ken, you really caught me off guard here. I'm not sure what would I tell them. other than what I just kind of told you. It's an experience that I guess you need to come experience and see. It's hard to describe to someone who's never done it. Even if you've been to another type of summer camp, Scout camp is unlike other camps. If you have ever been to a private camp, like a Y camp or something like that, you travel around with a group, you have a counselor with you, and, everybody goes to the waterfront and then everybody goes to, shoot archery. And Scout camp's not like that. Even as a scout, it's very independent. You have your own schedule. You do your own thing. You might have to travel with a buddy to get places, but you have to do what you want to do. And there's so much more freedom as a scout. That was a big thing for me. I mean, but a lot of what I enjoyed at camp was just being with my friends. So yeah, the independence that you get, even as a camper, is very unique. And then, it steps up as you go through the different levels. But the one thing I would say is you've got to experience it. I can't describe it without you experiencing it. It's like, especially the staff job, it's like nothing else you will ever experience in your life.
Well, Ed, I thank you for joining us. I think we had a great conversation today. And, as we usually end the episodes, I can't wait to see you next time at the Grizz.
I'll see you there.
Ed's journey captures what Rotary Scout Reservation is all about: learning, leading, and becoming part of something bigger than yourself. If you're ready for that kind of experience, or you're a parent who wants your scout to gain real-world skills and confidence, consider joining the Rotary staff. Visit the Rotary Scout Reservation website at rsrbsa.org and complete the camp staff and CIT application. It could be the start of a summer and a journey that changes your life. This episode is one of our continuing Meet Me at the Grizz conversations featuring authentic voices from Rotary Scout Reservation, the scouters and scouts who keep our camp spirit alive. We'd love to hear from you too. Visit meetmeatthegrizz.com and share your favorite RSR memories, or tell us what you'd like to hear as you prepare for your first summer at the Grizz. I'm your host, Ken Clough, and until next time, I'll meet you at the Grizz.